Right.
Okay. Well, great. Well, thank you and good morning. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is a segment that the Greater Greer Chamber of Commerce is doing called Greer Chamber Live, and we're just talking to the experts in the field and talking to them about how we can kind of cope and better deal with this current situation that we have. And it's my pleasure today to have Suzanne Brown, director of the Upstate Homeschool Co-op, join us today to talk to our membership and others about best practices for homeschooling, especially for the next at least month, if not longer, for parents that are just thrown into this situation, knowing they're probably educators in their own way, but not being prepared for this. It was something that we'd like to get some more information on. So I'll turn it over to you, and thank you so much for joining us.
Absolutely. I'm excited to be here, even from our homes, wherever we are this morning. So I am Suzanne Brown. I'm the executive director of the Upstate Homeschool Co-op. It was founded in my home in 1997, and I've been the executive director since then. We started with 19 students, and we now have 700, and we serve from K-4 to 12th grade. And we sort of are a university model co-op, meaning that our students go either 1 day or 2 days a week, and then they do their work at home. So we have been doing this homeschooling thing for a while, a little bit different than just if it were a parent who was responsible for every subject. But parents that are out there now that are schooling at home, not necessarily by choice, they definitely have been thrown into this overnight, and it is a huge learning curve.
Very good. And that's kind of where it would be a good starting point, is to not every parent is an expert in the subjects that they're teaching. And today, not for the co-op, so this is very separate from the co-op, but today I know just in the Greenville school system that today's the first day it's not reviewed. And so it's the first day the parents really have to kind of dig in and say, okay, it's time to help teach that. What do you say to, a dual working household where the mom and dad, or if it's just a single parent is working from home, but also trying to help their child? Are there any tips that you could provide?
Yes, I think there's a lot of good. The best place to start is to give yourself some grace and to take a breath and step back and realize that this is a learning curve for everybody, the students, the parents. Depending on the age of your child, it's going to be a little more complicated than others. I think parents that are, if you've got two parents who are working outside the home, and we all know that parents work inside their homes 24/7, but it's going to be a trade-off, and it's going to be, an active, intentional process of learning how to give and take in that. I think structure is hugely important, but we also have got to build in breaks and be flexible. So if you can think of a model where you have a lot of structure set up to hopefully have success for people working in this new environment, but also to have some flexibility with some built-in breaks, that's going to be the number one crucial piece. Parents who choose to home educate have usually spent months, if not, a year or so planning out their curriculum and to see and develop what works for their child. The parents who are new to this model do not have that benefit. You're having to take curriculum that somebody else is giving to you and try to figure out how to do it from home. So again, that's where that flexibility piece. One of the other important things to remember is it's not going to be an 8-hour school day. If your child's leaving the house and going into a traditional setting, you've got 30 kids in a classroom, you're taking bathroom breaks and lunch breaks and all those transition breaks that just don't happen in that same way when you're at home. So it's going to be a lot shorter. And that's something to remember, that it's not going to be an all-day affair, and that to be okay with that. And another thing to remember, I think that will help our kids, is if parents aren't saying you have to sit at this desk or this table and do this work. be flexible with that. You know, as adults, we all have different places and ways that we like to work, and that may be outside or at a desk or on a couch, or, you know, maybe ask your child, do you want to sit at this table, or would you rather sit on a pile of cushions on the floor, and be okay with that, because kids are going to learn more if they have some freedom and flexibility to do it where they want to do it.
That is already great information so far. Thank you for providing that. And it's interesting about structure, flexibility, breaks. The other thing is, you're absolutely right. It's, you know, instruction in a traditional classroom. You're right. It's 8 hours, but there's breaks, there's segments, and that type of thing. Last week, for example, my youngest, he's in 4th grade. He was done in an hour and a half. And I'm like, I'm thinking in my head, what do I do with him for the rest of the time? So, are there any suggestions? Obviously, we're practicing social distancing. We can't. One of the rules is try to stay at least contained to your yard, or what that is. Is there any suggestions you have for their outdoor breaks or their recess type of breaks? I don't even want to call them recess. It's more just run around the house or something.
Right. Absolutely. And I think that's where this type of education absolutely shines, because I have 7 children. I have 6 boys, and I'm down to my last 2 that are home. And we just over the years, well, my last 2 are in high school now, but over the years, we did multiple breaks of, okay, finish your math and then go out and shoot baskets for 20 minutes. Finish this section of history and go dig a hole, go work in the garden, go weed a bed, go chop wood, go run around the house with the dogs. Even if you're in an apartment, you know, go for a walk, go outside and do sidewalk chalk. You know, you can give your little children a bucket of water and a paintbrush with just water and have them go, you know, wash something down, just anything that will get them outside and moving. But this is also a great time to learn some life management skills. And I think people that are on that traditional school, sports, afternoon activities, it's hard to get in learning how to change a tire, learning how to change the oil, you know, for older students, learning what home maintenance looks like. Help them be a part of what we all have to do to manage our life, our homes, whatever that is. So this is an excellent, learn how to cook, try new recipes, just different things where you're training them to be able to manage when they leave your house. Help them learn how to do laundry. If mom or dad's the one that's been doing that laundry all along, change that up a little bit. But use those things, sort of shift the mentality to, we're all living in this house, this space, whatever that is, together. We all have to eat. We all have to have some way to get from here to there that needs maintenance, that needs manage. So use this time to teach some of those skills. You know, if you've got a child who's just turned 18, let them learn how to register to vote. You know, just all those different little things that we might not have time for when we're all running here and there to different practices and events and school. So again, great opportunity for those kind of things to flourish.
Yeah, that's really good. And you know, those soft skills, those are those areas that employers are looking at best. I like hearing that. One thing, just a question. You're talking about the you know, after a lesson, go out and play. Because it's, you know, after doing it for a week and now thinking, okay, what does that structure look like? Would it be best to do a schedule of sorts? I don't always know which subjects my children are working on, but is it best to do a schedule? Say, okay, at 11:30 we're gonna go and you're gonna go play, and is it best to do it that way, or should it be a little bit more fluid based on the lessons they're learning? Or do you have any comments about that?
Yeah, I do. I think that's another skill that actually can be taught, is to right now use this to help them learn how to manage their time. Maybe sit down with your child, even if they're in 3rd grade, you know, give them 2 options. Would you rather do all of your work for 3 hours? They're probably not going to choose that. Or would you rather do this lesson and then take a break? And depending on their response, help them type up a schedule. Use technology to help them build that in so that you're teaching them how to manage their day, which they haven't really had that opportunity before. If you're coming out of traditional school, it's been managed for them. So now, do they like lists? Do they like, you can even do that with very young non-readers. You can do pictures of things that they can choose for to help give them some control over their world right now, because none of us feel like we have very much say in that right now. That is, we do all live in a bubble of control, but we definitely do not have it right now. And they're feeling that also. So any of those, use this time to help them figure out how to manage that. And your child, I'm sure he'll tell you, I'd rather go throw the football for 20 minutes, set a timer. If that seems to be out of control, for them, they want to keep playing, they want to keep doing, we got to get our work done, but we're going to build in the breaks and let you have some management of that.
Excellent. No, that's great. Great. Thank you so much for that information. What about technology? What about use of computer, use of, technology, iPads, that type of thing? And also, how do you manage, any tips on how to manage the older ones that have that cell phone? Other than data.
That's a tough one, because we all know the research on, too much is such a bad thing, but now that's the only way they can, if they're zooming in on a class, which is an excellent way, to still give them some feedback. In fact, I've got one in the other room right now doing a Zoom geometry meeting, and that's giving them some touch points, even though they're not live with people. But again, I think we're going to have to break on that. I don't know any traditionally homeschooled families who have been successful in doing nothing but online instruction. It's too much. And so that's another thing we're going to have to figure out. And this is how do you balance that? So building those breaks in for real activity outside, or doing something else in the house. Working puzzles, building blocks for the little ones, and using their Legos, just all of those kinds of things that are not technology driven. That's going to be hugely important right now.
Great. Well, thank you. And I'll finish up with one last question is, with the co-op, I'm guessing there's a process. Someone,
yes.
Family would contact you and say, we'd like to start a homeschooling. It probably would happen right about now, probably for next semester. Right. And you say, great. Here's some onboarding material. Here's what you probably should do. What's your advice to them in the short term, or to parents that are listening to this? What's your advice in the short term? Because there's only about a month and a half left 2 months left in school. What's advice that you can say, these are the 2 or 3 things that you could do today that would help, that are outside of the structure, flexibility, breaks, curriculum, that type of thing?
Right. So I'll sidetrack a little bit from that, but what I'm starting to see now on Facebook groups and on a lot of social media is people saying, well, I want to pull my 2nd grader out of public school and finish my homeschooling. Then what do I have to do? You would still have to be legal, which means you have to register with an accountability group. And people can look at that law themselves, South Carolina homeschooling and ways to be legal. You couldn't just say, I'm going to do this. And now if you want to just keep your child in their school, and you may want to, this would be a great time if they're interested in space, to start doing some extra fun things with space, doing some building and reading. And again, we're back to online because they can't go to the library and check out a book right now, but there are all sorts of ways that you could use this time to look into things that your child is interested in. And so that might set them up. You might realize, hey, I like this way of learning, or it's sort of student driven on some of the younger ages. We still have to meet, different criteria to graduate and so forth for high school. But this would be a good time to build some of the gaps in areas that they are interested in and want to look at things further. And you might start to see some interest from your child that you didn't know they had, which could develop into jobs later, or their course, whatever course they want to take after high school. So I don't know if that's exactly answering that question, but definitely staying up on math. I think we see a lot of, that's where regression happens for some kids, math and reading, but there are definitely ways to work on that at home. When you have young kids, you think about if you're in the kitchen cooking, there's a myriad of ways to include math. You just have to make those connections for them that we don't always think about, but that's what real life math, that's why you're learning these concepts, is to help you, do this. Let your kids sit down and help you do your taxes. If, people do them themselves, let them look at the information that you have to gather. All these, there's just a lot of, they can help interpret all this data that we're all seeing all over the place, looking at the graphs. Again, anytime you can make a bridge between what they're learning conceptually and real life, you're helping them into adulthood.
Excellent. Well, thank you. That's really good. And those are ideas and concepts that we'll definitely be trying out in our home, but I'm hoping that this will help others that watch this interview today. And again, I just want to thank you so much for taking time and being part of Greer Chamber Live. And if you have any further questions, definitely out there, reach out to the Chamber of Commerce. We'll be happy to pass that information along. And thank you again so much, and have a wonderful week.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Bye-bye.